Oh God, we're doing a podcast.
What is it now, Karen? Episode 15.
Hello and welcome back to the What Is Now Karen podcast. My God, we've got an episode in store tonight. I think we've got so much to talk about. I'm Joe. I'm here with Beth.
Hello.
Tonight we're going to be delving deep into the strange, mysterious relationship between the Union Jack, Queen Elizabeth II and online Karens. How have you been, Bethany?
I'm good. I've been painting.
For leisure or like...
No, I've been painting my kitchen.
Oh, okay. What colour you go for?
Just white. I've got a very, very small kitchen, so I don't actually really have much wall space. It's really just like cupboards and then the ceiling, so...
Right, okay. What colour are the cabinets?
White.
Yeah. Bridal white, white snow?
Virginal.
No, we both know that's not true. Apart from that, anything interesting?
Visited a few people in the garden, which was nice. And that's really about it. Painting my kitchen ceiling and visiting people in the garden.
But I mean, that is like exhilarating stuff compared to what we've...
Absolutely, yeah, I was shattered.
I've also been out enjoying the sunshine. I managed to see my family for the first time in a while. Socially distanced, of course.
Of course.
And then we exchanged Christmas presents.
God.
What is it? March, mid to late March. And you are not going to believe what I got for my Christmas.
What'd you get?
A toasty maker.
Not another one.
Not another one. But actually, this time I'm really grateful for it because I don't have one, and I've not been eating toasties. I've not been able to eat toasties, so I'm now one toasty maker up, which is great, absolutely sensational. But yeah, what a bizarre experience to have a bag full of like Christmas presents in March. Yeah, I got another toasty maker, which I'm actually pleased this time. If you know
Very practical.
Very practical. The only issue is I've got quite a small kitchen, and at the moment there's absolutely no surface space whatsoever for a toaster.
Oh, I don't. My kitchen is very small, as I've just mentioned. I literally don't have any space on the wall. It's just like cabinets and then the ceiling. I have an air fryer, a toasting machine, a coffee machine, a pressure cooker. What else?
A pressure cooker on your... You routinely use that? That's something that I would like keep in a cupboard.
It's in the cupboard, but it's just there's just a lot of appliances: a microwave, kettle, toaster.
There should be something that does everything in one: boils, toasts, microwaves. Somebody's got to invent that, surely.
Yeah.
Yeah, toasties are go. So I'll let you all know how I get on next week with my toasties. If you don't know the history behind the toasty makers, you can go back to the Christmas special and listen. I've got an infamous tale about a panini grill and a pair of Desi boots. Oh, did I tell you I'm learning to drive?
No, that's quite a big update.
It's quite a big update. When I say learning, I'm just like driving with learning plates on.
Right.
Like with Andy in the car, obviously not just like taking the car off by myself. Yeah. No formal lessons yet. So I've driven twice, and both times I've had to stop and get Andy to take over. One time I drove from work in the dark, and obviously we had to like avoid the motorway, so we're going this like long way around, and then we kind of got lost, and then I finally figured out where I was, and then Andy told me to go left at a roundabout when we had to go right, and I was like, we've gone the wrong way. He was like, we'll just stop then. And I went to park on the side of the road, and he was like, stop! I was like, okay, but I can't stop right now because there's a car right behind me. So I like pulled in and stopped, and he was like, that was far too fast. He was like, you just parked this car at 20 miles an hour.
But you also live and work in like the city centre. So fair play for. I feel like I was in like a car park for like 4 lessons before I hit the road.
And then like an industrial estate or something.
Yeah.
Well, but it's because like you can't really. You're not like lessons aren't necessarily allowed right now, but like essential journeys are fine. So like the 2 times I've driven, one time was coming home from work. So like I'm obviously like commuting home. And the second time I drove to Big Tesco. And that time I got beeped at within about 2 minutes of driving. But I actually have since worked out it wasn't me. The person was beeping at. I got...
Who's beeping at a learner driver?
Well, exactly. And then that same trip on the way home from the shops, we got lost again and somebody kept flashing their lights at me. I was like, Andy, that guy's flashing at me. What's going on? And he was like, it's nothing. It's fine. And then we were lost again. So I like pulled in and then the guy that was flashing us all the way behind us like pulled up beside us. I was like, oh my God, here we go. What's he going to say? So I was like panicking. I tried to put the window down. I put the back window down. And then he was like, your lights. I was like, what? He was like, your lights aren't on. I was like, oh, sorry. And then he like drove off. And it was dark. It was pitch black. So anyway, they've both been mildly chaotic.
You're still alive.
I'm still alive. Can you remember your first driving lesson? What was it like?
I think it was quite uneventful. Have I told you? Do you know how many driving instructors I like? I don't want to say went through, but so my first driving instructor.
No more than 2, surely.
No, wait to hear this. My first driving instructor went to Australia
to get away from you to the other side of the world.
Second driving instructor. This one's quite a shame actually. She had MS, so she was always kind of in crutches, but then eventually she was in like a wheelchair, so she wasn't able to do driving lessons anymore. Yeah. The third one went on to become like a trainer for like bus drivers.
Is that promotion in the driving lesson world?
It must be, yeah. So we went on to teach people how to drive buses and then eventually passed with the 4th one.
4? God's sake.
Yeah.
And over what space of time is that for driving instructors?
Well, I started when I was 17, but then obviously as like instructors left, it kind of took me a while to find a new one. So I think I passed when I was 19, so 2 years.
God, this is a shame for you, like no continuity.
No. I passed first time though, mainly because I've been doing lessons for 2 years.
You're essentially a seasoned driver.
Yeah.
You used to always not let me have an opinion about cars and driving because I don't have a license.
Has it been a regular occurrence in our life that you've like tried to have an opinion? Maybe if you've been like snarky commenting about my driving, I'd have said, shut up, you can't drive. I think is fair enough.
I think on this podcast
we regularly speak about cars and driving, do we? But yeah, if you've ever made a snarky comment about my driving, I probably would have told you shut up.
Yeah, people tell me shut up quite a lot, actually. I've got a couple of things to talk about. One of them is a submission. Our listener who told us that they shopped in Waitrose. So we had a listener who said that, you know, they agreed that Morrison's is the worst of the worst. But if you think shopping at M&S is class treachery, then I dread to think what you'd say about me shopping at Waitrose. And we called that person a pre-Tory. The visceral thrill I got from hearing a message read out on a podcast, followed by the anger of being described as a pre-Tory. I acknowledge it's problematic behaviour, but I'd never be a Tory.
A roller coaster of emotion.
I know. Well, I think they're protesting too much there.
Mm.
We only said you were a pre-Tory, we didn't say you were a Tory.
Yeah. Sound a little bit insecure about that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's enough chit-chat. Let's get down to business.
Yeah.
Let's get down to business. To defeat.
Okay, so we go, is it Karen of the Week time?
Yeah, but you can say it with more enthusiasm than that.
Sorry. Is it Canon of the Week time?
Canon of the Week time.
Okay, so our Karen of the Week for episode 15 was actually sent in by one of our listeners. And it's probably the most kind of on-brand like tweet, do you think?
Oh, it's perfect.
It's got everything. It's got all the elements of all of our Karens. So it's a tweet by an account called Save Our Statues, Robert.
Save Our Statues.
And it's the story. So, yeah, for context, it was the BBC Breakfast presenters were interviewing a Tory MP,
Housing Secretary Robert Jenrick, and he actually was involved in something a few months ago. Him and another, there was cronyism on the go between him and another Tory minister, where they essentially both helped each other get certain things passed in Parliament that were beneficial to themselves. But I need to look into that. Like, one of them led the vote for one thing and another for the other. But it was him that's been interviewed, and the first breakfast presenter said, Charlie State said, "I think your flag's not up to standard-sized government interview measurements. I think it's just a little bit small, but that's your department, really. Just a thought."
because obviously in a weird sort of PR move, all kind of Tory ministers and MPs have like flags in their house, which is just the most bizarre thing ever. So they were kind of laughing about it.
So I think the hosts were like, your flag doesn't look quite big enough there in the background. And then they were like, and then he hung up, and then they were like, oh, and then Naga, God bless Naga, she was like, oh, and he had a lovely picture of the Queen there as well, because he had a framed photo of the Queen.
Matt Hancock as well has a massive picture of the Queen as well, but it's almost like a kind of Andy Warhol sort of style. Like, it's huge.
The one in this guy's wall was weird. It was enormous, right? It was honestly like, but it was also like, do you know how people have like professional photos of themselves hanging up in their house or like their grandparents? That's what it was like. It was a giant headshot of the Queen, but like not even like a young Queen like looking like retro and cool. It was like the 90-year-old Queen, like really close up her face. It was like bizarre.
Look, I can understand it for like briefings in Parliament and stuff like that. You know, we have the flag, we have, you know, whatever. But in their house, like that's been a PR decision. Like, someone said to all the kind of Tory ministers and MP, like, you know, you need to. Do you think they all got sent them out?
I think they did. I think there honestly must be there's a unified message or something for Brandon, like, and it's probably a lot to do with Brexit and a lot to do with Scottish independence as well. Like, we have to start being consistent with our, you know, talking about the union and getting the flag in there and talking about the Queen and like building up a sense of, because realistically, like, there isn't like in my eyes, there's not like a British national identity that isn't like caricature, like, do you know what I mean? Like, if you talk about British culture, like, is it like the Queen in a red London bus and fish and chips? That's not culture, that's just like cartoonish. So I think what they've tried to do is like build this idea of like Britishness, but it really all does centre on like a flag.
It's very American.
Well, that's exactly what I was about to say. It's weird because in America, obviously, like, kids in America have to pledge allegiance to a flag every morning, which is like cult-like. That's what it is, becoming a bit like a cult. So what did Robert say?
Robert says, just the BBC presenters sniggering about our flag and our Queen. Nothing to see here. Hashtag defund the BBC.
Defund the Beeb.
Defund the Beeb.
But that's funny as well that they've taken that defund, like, from like the movement was defund the police, as in stop giving police forces army-sized budgets. Like, they're supposed to protect us, not control us. Defund the BBC. But I think in my eyes the irony is that the BBC is like so impartial as to actually be, and actually quite sympathetic towards the government. So like, I don't know why he would be calling for defunding the BBC, but anyway.
Yeah, I think the irony sometimes with the BBC is that both sides, you know, whether you're right wing, left wing, whatever position you sit in the spectrum, people think the BBC is biased. I'm like, well, if both sides think it's biased, then maybe that's a good thing. But anyway, I just thought, save our statues, Robert. The flag shagger is also a statue shagger.
Flag shagger. There is this weird, like, not what's a trinity but four things, and it's like statues, poppies, the Union Jack, and the Queen. Like these like four things are always like up on a pedestal. I saw a car with a poppy on it yesterday. It's March.
Yeah, poppies are kind of in that. With flags. Statues is very new to the game.
Statues are new to the game, and actually there was some beef on Twitter that I really did not predict regarding statues, and it was between Piss Morgan and Jedward of all people.
Jedward.
And Jedward had tweeted, "Get that Winston Churchill statue and F it into Piers Morgan's back garden. It has no place in today's society."
Wait, Jedward are always on like the right side of like political issues, and they're very outspoken.
But Piss replied, and he's summed himself up as a flag muncher and a Karen, because he's got great sentence structure here. A, I'd be honoured to have that statue in my garden. B, Churchill saved Britain from the Nazis and contributed more to society every time he breathed than you talentless, disrespectful clowns have done in your combined 58 years of gormless, tuneless imbecility. Really great adjectives in there. Really great sentence structure. And he's managed to mention statues, Churchill, and the Nazis all in one. Fantastic effort.
When the irony is that this kind of weird flag waving, queen loving, statue worshipping is borderline, Nazi territory. No?
Yeah, like this like cult of personality.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like a huge fan of Churchill, when he was on before talking to, do you know the wee Green MSP Ross? I can't remember his last name. Is it Ross Greer or something like that?
The ginger one?
He's ginger, yeah. Wears glasses.
Mm-hmm.
They were debating about Churchill on Good Morning Britain, and the Ross Greer guy absolutely schooled Piers Morgan and said, he was a fascist, he hated Indian people, he was racist, he had concentration camps, he deliberately starved them to death, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, he won the war, but the minute the soldiers came home, they all voted him out and he lost the next election. And Piers Morgan was like, all he could say was, that's disrespectful, he won the war, he saved Britain from the Nazis, da-da-da-da. But actually, people physically fight in the war that saved the country from Nazis, not Churchill himself. Yeah. But in that exchange, Ross Greer had said, "Well, Piers, you tried to accuse me of racism yesterday because I said you looked like a honey roast gammon joint." And he is a honey roast gammon. But actually, he's not even honey roast, because honey roast suggests a lovely sweetness, and he's not even sweet. He's just like annoying.
I thought I would also give an honourable mention to this other Twitter account. Talking about a similar topic, the account is called Labour Are Toast. And the profile picture is Priti Patel in like some sort of superhero costume. But this account says, if you don't like your country or Union Jack, then leave. Find another country and another flag. Take yourself and your belongings on the next flight out of here, and I guarantee at least 17.4 million people will stand on their doorsteps and clap.
What is it with doorstep clapping?
Oh no.
Another thing that they've invented: clap for the NHS, clap for Captain Tom, clap for Boris.
Is the 17.4 million people, is that a reference to Brexit?
I think that's the number of people that voted leave.
Okay. Well, the irony there is that they've prevented our freedom of movement, so we can't just pack up and leave and live in another country. So thanks for that.
that's got the same vibe of like someone who like, you know, Britain is for the British, or like
Yeah.
that kind of vibe of like, you must love, if you live in this country, you absolutely must love it. You must worship the Queen. You must adore the flag. You know, if you don't, get lost, don't live here. But it's like, well, I'm allowed to be critical of the place that I live in. Like, come on. Like, if you hate it and leave. That's what refugees do. Like, they are in danger, or they hate their country they live in, or they're under threat. So they leave and they flee. And they come here looking for help. And then the same. There's a significant crossover between the same people who like worship the flag, who also, you know, are like voted leave, close the borders, that kind of thing. So you can't have it both ways. And what you're saying earlier as well, like about it being American, is true. It's like you almost can't even be seen to question it now. It's like, so like if you're a BBC presenter, you either have to toe the expected line to not annoy people, which is like, oh, lovely to see the Queen, or like that's a nice flag, or whatever, or say nothing at all. Like, you're not allowed to be counter to the narrative, if you know what I mean. Why is it such a big deal for them to laugh at the flag and say, oh, your flag's not quite big enough? Like, that's banter. Like, that's just them having like banter with their guest.
Yeah.
Like, people jump on it. It's a bit sinister that you can't even, you're accused of like disrespect and, you know, being outrageous if you question it.
Aye, I know what you mean. It's just kind of teetering on the edges of being a bit worrying that, you know, BBC presenters are having to apologise for, you know, making fun of someone who's got a massive flag in his house. Like, that's weird. Like, people don't have that in their houses, especially the way that it's kind of presented. It's very like, I don't know. Like, if you were to have a flag in your room, you would sort of have it kind of on the wall maybe, but even the way that they're all kind of hanging like half-mast, it's very like we've said, a conscious kind of image that they're trying to present. So it's just weird.
Naga, she apparently liked some tweets that were like directed towards Robert Jenrick and like quite like scathing of him and like quote unquote offensive.
I think that was fair enough, because I think she liked tweets calling him a flag shagger. So I mean, that is, I don't think that is objectively offensive.
I suppose that is objectively offensive, and I guess she maybe shouldn't like that on Twitter. But she also got into trouble for the BBC as well, because she I think she quite rightly called Donald Trump racist, branded his remarks right. Remember Donald Trump told like there was a group of female senators or congresswomen, like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez and other people, and he told them all to go back to their own countries because they're all of like ethnic minorities. And she said, you know, he's a racist. That's racist. And she was told by BBC to like apologise for saying that. I was like, but yes, and that's blatantly a racist thing he said, and she's called it out, and yet the BBC are so like that's where the BBC is weird, like, because they're so desperate for impartiality that they won't even call a spade a spade.
Yeah, but then, like I've said, it's like and it's annoying that I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but like that on the opposite end, you have people who are, you know, right-wing Brexiteers who think that the BBC is biased. Do you know what I mean? And it's because they've got this weird thing, like you've said, of impartiality, where, you know, the way that they reporting it just now is sometimes strange.
But do you? I guess, like, I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the side of the coin that I'm on. But like, for instance, like I don't see when I see like that, like the Union Jack always there in like an interview. It does feel like propaganda. Like it's like a constant subliminal like presence, like the Queen and the Union Jack and all these government interviews, and like, see when I see like a saltire or something, like I don't get the same. And do you know what I mean? Like I feel like a saltire is never pushed upon things or like foisted upon things. Mm-hmm. Like it's flown at government buildings.
We're definitely seeing it more. It's because they're in everyone's houses, like all the Tory parties, like houses. Because also they're doing a lot of Zoom interviews, and people are like working from home. And it's just having them in their house, which is just bizarre.
But it's weird. It's like, we know you're a Tory. We know you're a part of the UK government. You don't need to have a flag there like that. It is truly bizarre. Save our statues, though. Brilliant username. Like, nobody, like, save them. Save them from what? Like, nobody's really, like, there's been one statue toppled that I can think of.
It's just funny how, like, I mean, I really hadn't given it the statue a thought, you know, before like last year. And I guarantee that a lot of people who are, you know, fiercely defensive of our statues, whatever they may be, I don't imagine they gave it a second thought before last year until they were seemingly under threat. But, and I don't want to generalise, but I'm sure if you asked all these people who are very, you know, who love the statues, statue shaggers, whatever you want to call them, like the history behind the statues that they're defending.
Yeah, would they fully appreciate and understand?
Would they fully appreciate, you know, what the statues, you know, signified or represented?
But probably not, because they probably swept up again in this like idea of like what there's this weird idea of what Britishness is, apparently, but you know, it's nothing of the sort. It's the same way that Piers Morgan can sit and listen to like the cold hard facts about, you know, how Churchill took great joy in starving Indian people, you know, was like overtly racist about people, concentration camps and the like, can listen to those facts and still be like, no, he was a hero.
Yeah. It's really well, people are like, oh yeah, but that's our history and we need to own it and blah blah blah. And our history of slavery, you know, it needs to be remembered, but in a museum, not in a gold or bronze statue that represents, you know, a statue is usually something positive because you're celebrating someone's life.
I saw a great interview with, I'm trying to find their name because I can't remember what they were called, but they were like these Irish guys who are like they're like, they make music, and they were in this interview and they were saying like, why do Irish people not like English or the British or something like that? And they were saying like, it's the fact that you can't acknowledge your history and your past, like you don't have any remorse. That's the difference between like the UK and Germany. Like Germany acknowledged its really difficult past and all the kids learn about it and they like confront it and they get over it and they move on, whereas like the UK just buries it and sweeps under the carpet and doesn't ever talk about it because, you know, it's too, because again they want to keep this like weird facade of like the UK being this brilliant country when it's actually been pretty bloody horrific throughout history. And also basically has like no, not that power is something to desire, but like has absolutely no sway or power in the world whatsoever. Like where it's a tiny wee speck of an island with like 50 million people in it. It's not in a failing economy. It's not like a world power.
Oh my god, I've just realised the UK has like small man syndrome.
Oh my god, it totally does.
Overcompensates, is a bit arrogant, but deep down just very insecure because he's small in every department. Every man that I've met who's short, they'll usually ask me what height I am, and I'll reply with my height, which is 5'10", and they'll all say, "Nah, you're not," because I'm 5'10", and I go, "Well, no, you're not."
Got some news for you.
Obviously, these like grown men have like flags and pictures of the Queen in their like bedrooms, which to me is just a bit weird. Like when I was growing up, I had like posters and different things. Like at what age is it like weird to still have like posters and things up in your bedroom?
Oh, like I think you move away from like posters to like, I've certainly moved away from posters to like framed things now, so it's essentially just like a
artwork.
frame. prints and canvases. It's much more
Yeah.
classic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I don't really see the place for like I never had flags in my bedroom. I had like a small saltire, I think, like a tiny little one on like a wee stand.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think flags on flagpoles or not.
Not on a flag, maybe on the, like you said, on the wall or something, but not like a flagpole in your bedroom.
They're not. They are not an interior design choice. That should
No.
never come into the equation. Also, like it looks quite sad. Like I thought the whole point of a flag is that it's stretched out and you can see it. Like there's no wind inside, so it's just like a piece of cloth hanging off a pole, draped.
I had like posters and like concert tickets and
Yeah, I had all that kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was weird that he had a framed picture of like a portrait of the Queen, but like nothing of his family up or like him. I don't know if it was like in his office or maybe it was just his office or maybe it was like his Westminster flat or something. But I just thought it was just a bit clinical and like very strange.
Yeah, because it wasn't like it was even Matt Hancock, like I said, has like a kind of, you know, artistic picture of the Queen, which is kind of maybe, you know, the kind of Rolling Stones kind of like picture of the Queen.
I almost think that's even.
Which you could maybe get away with, oh, that's like a piece of art. But this was it, Robert Jenrick, is that his name? It's like just a portrait of the Queen, like a passport picture of the Queen.
I also think that the art style could almost be conceived as a little bit weirder because it's like, well, the Queen's not like a cool, like it's not like Barack Obama with his like two-toned portrait with hope. That was like quite a cool trendy thing to have in 2008. But like also just generally, like I don't think I would have any framed pictures of people that weren't like my friends or my family. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know how people have like princess like framed pictures of, like Princess Di and stuff like or like weird stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like even I see some people with like framed pictures of Nicola Sturgeon and I'm like, what are you doing? Like that's so strange to me.
A lot of my family, I think, have pictures of the Pope.
The Pope John Paul II are making it
Pope John Paul II, yeah. That's mainly all Pope John Paul II.
Because he obviously came to Glasgow. It was a big deal and everyone's got pictures of.
So did Pope Benedict came to Glasgow?
He didn't really have the same personality as Pope John Paul.
But yeah, I don't have any. I even find it a bit awkward having framed pictures of like myself in it. Like,
yeah, that's so narcissistic.
Yeah, well, even me with other people, I just think, oh yeah, is that narcissistic? Like to have, because then I'm like, if people come into my house when obviously COVID allows, like, are they going to look at that and go, no, she thinks she's it?
He likes the smell of her own farts.
Or like, oh, she obviously thinks she's good looking there because she's got it framed in her house.
She's went to the trouble of printing out and getting it framed. Well, that's enough of a whistle-stop tour of flags for me for one day. My head is spinning and throbbing with questions and no answers. I don't think I'll ever understand it, but that was good fun. What have you got any plans for the next wee while over the next few weeks if we get nice weather?
No.
More walks,
more walks. Yeah, more sitting in the garden.
Yay, more walks. Yeah. I'm going to try and... we've got a wee patch of stones outside the front of our flat that apparently is like ours. I'm going to try and spruce that up a bit because right now it's just stones and cigarette ends. I don't know who stands out there and just flicks their cigarette ends into my bloody stones, but I'm not having it anymore.
You make a wee sign.
I'm going to put planters around the edge of it so that people don't just flick. Do you know this is the second home that I've lived in where people have religiously flicked their cigarette ends into my garden? When we lived in Dundee, do you remember that house that we lived in Dundee and it was like the townhouse?
Mm-hmm.
So there would be like cigarette ends in like the driveway around the front and I'd be like, who is it? Like none of us smoke, like what's going on here? One day I came home and there was like a family had moved in next door. They were quite an odd family. At one point the dad was outside in his pants fighting a guy like in the middle of the street. And this is like a student-y area of Dundee. It wasn't like, do you know what I mean? It was just, they were a bit incongruent with the rest of the people that lived there. Mm. But anyway, one time I was coming home like in the dark, and I could see the woman in the house like on the top floor, like smoking a cigarette. I could see the lit end of her cigarette out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And she used to always do this. Like this first time I caught her doing it, but like anytime she was at the door smoking, and you were coming up to go into your door, she would just like go inside and close the door. She wouldn't like avoid you. It was very strange.
Mm-hmm.
But this time I watched her. She was at the top floor. I was coming up to the house, so it wasn't even like she was at the door and trying to avoid me. She took a draw of her cigarette, flicked it into her garden, and then slammed her window shut. I was like, I wanted to be like, excuse me. That's my moss covered driveway that you're flicking your cigarette in. It's not like I had a prized Chelsea flower show garden on the go, but I was just like, excuse me, that's my dirty driveway. Don't be flicking your cigarette ends in here. But this was after her husband had been in the street in his pants and his slippers fighting either his own son or his daughter's boyfriend. So I was like, I'm not chapping the door. I'm not having this.
No. You don't want to be another victim.
The victim of the... I don't know, he was wearing quite loose boxers as well. He could definitely have
Don't.
had a wardrobe malfunction.
Don't. Okay, that was a nice wee episode.
Yeah, if you enjoyed listening, give us a subscribe or a download or a like or whatever the kids do these days. We're on Acast, Spotify, YouTube still.
YouTube still, Apple Podcasts.
We're everywhere like a bad rash.
Yeah.
And you can submit stuff to us as well. We like we had this week. We had a good submission to spark an episode. You can send stuff to us on Instagram. What is it now, Karen? And you can email it. And the address is whatisitnowkaren@gmail.com. And you can go and listen to all our other episodes as well. There's like 14 or 15 episodes where we dissect the world. Do you think we'll still do this when lockdown's over, Bethany?
We'll see.
I would like it if we did.
Yeah.
But it'd also be fun to look back on and say, oh, that's what we did when we were locked down. We made podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Right, anyway. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Okay, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.